Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, the Burnley podcast. We're recording this just in advance of the Everton game, the return of Sean Dyche, the Sean Dyche derby. Call it what you will. I'm sure Sky Sports and all the rest of the nationals will have a quite a fancy title for it. No Justin Connolly this week. He's behind enemy lines in Liverpool. He's gone to have a word with Jurgen Klopp, I think, just to kind of try and set him straight. But we have got Simon Evans, Chris Borden and Paul Woodhouse with me, Andrew Greaves, to preview the game against the Toffees. Let's start with Klopp, shall we? Because it has caused a bit of consternation this week. The Liverpool manager, not a fan of spending his Christmas in Burnley. Chris, any kind of tourist places you wish to point Clipperty in the direction of on Boxing Day after the Liverpool game?
All about the singing ringing tree, isn't it? But I'm inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt there. So I've not heard him, actually say it. So the context in which he said it in, but I'll sort of let him off and presume he's saying it's a tough place to go and one of the last places you want to play on Boxing Day. But
after 7 home defeats in a row,
exactly. But I don't want to look too deeply at it. I mean, some people have been making sort of the wild comparisons about, Liverpool at the minute. It's a time of year where people sing a certain song to the tune of Band-Aid, don't they? At fans of Merseyside clubs, and people are saying, well, don't sort of disparage, Merseyside, and then start disparaging other places. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, I think.
Yeah, I have heard it. He said it's an absolute shithole and he won't be seen dead in smacks. So, I mean, make that what you...
James cleverly, is it?
Yeah, make that what you will. I mean, I'm just reporting the facts. But no, I mean, obviously, we don't know the context. A lot has been blown out of proportion. I also think, it's tongue-in-cheek. It's an evening game, Boxing Day. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to be anywhere other than at home at 5:30 on Boxing Day, do they? Having watched perhaps a 3 p.m. kickoff. But Simon, it's always good to ramp up a bit of rivalry, isn't it? And we've had that rivalry with Liverpool and Klopp, and ended their run, and the big bust up between Klopp and Dyche at half time. There's nothing wrong with a bit of light-hearted banter, is there?
Oh, I'm not letting him get off with it as easily as Chris is. I've sat in quite a few Klopp press conferences over the years, and when there's 2 or 3 different versions of Jurgen Klopp, right? There's the one after they win where he's everyone's mate and he's got the smiling face and he's that chirpy German character everyone liked when he first came into the Premier League. Then there's the Klopp when he loses, who's bitter, always looking for excuses, biting really easily with the Sky interviewers or in the press conferences. And even in a previewy sort of press conference where he's not had something that's just annoyed him to react to him, he's very different when he's with the Liverpool pack and when he's with a sort of broader crowd before a Champions League. Before a Champions League game, he'll generally play it pretty straight. But then when he thinks he's just on home turf with the local boys in Liverpool, he slips into things like disparaging comments about Burnley that get a little bit of a laugh from the Liverpool lads. So I'm not letting him off with it quite so easily because, Liverpool is a club and they have got a fan base that, let's say, do take offence quite easily, yeah? And one of the things they like to take offence to is the idea that they were the only working class town in the north of England that had it hard in the 1980s. The rest of us were all yuppies working in the stock market, apart from in Liverpool, where they were like at 75% unemployment and struggled more than anyone else. We all know that's complete nonsense, that the north of England as a whole had very similar problems. And at the time, I don't recall Liverpool fans being particularly keen on solidarity with their brothers and sisters across the other side of the northwest. And so for him to do that, I bet he got a chuckle. I bet he got a chuckle out of the local press for taking a little dig at Burnley. I don't know what we can do to make him feel more at home at Christmas. I mean, what the Germans... I once spent a New Year in Germany, actually, and I remember waking up with a bit of a hangover on New Year's Day, and it was cold herrings in milk, I think, was the delicious breakfast that was put out on the table. So I'm not sure what would make Jurgen's trip feel better for him, but it's probably just whinging about... I think you're right. It's probably just whinging about having to play at Christmas, of course, which winds me up something chronic, because most of a lot of foreign managers complain about it. It's part of our game. It's always been part of our game. We used to play on Christmas Day at one time, and they get paid absolutely millions, a ludicrous amount of money to come over and play and coach teams in our league, and then whinge about having to play on Boxing Day, whether it's at Burnley. Well, I'm not sure he really wanted a trip to Bournemouth away on Boxing Day either, would he? So, I'm not having Jurgen Klopp's comments like that. I think he's bang out of order on several levels.
And just in keeping with the 1980s unionist movement, we can now describe Simon Evans as a firebrand, I think. Very off the Scargill of him there. We strayed a little bit into Alistair Campbell's The Rest is Politics territory there, didn't we? But Woody, I mean, I kind of share the same view of Klopp with Simon. I mean, when he came in, he was a bit like Mourinho when he first came in. You think he's this kind of witty, kind of cuddly character. But at times, he's just a bit of a dick, isn't he?
Just a bit of a dick. Yeah, I mean, having lived in Liverpool and Burnley, I know where I'd rather be on Boxing Day. Let's put it that way. I'm being non-committal, but he's a bit of a dick, and so that's what he does. He did it with a slightly cheeky smile. It's up to him if he wants to wind anybody up. But like Simon said, he could be buggering off down to Bournemouth on Boxing Day. All he's got to do is toddle over the bloody over to Burnley for an evening kick-off. It should be fine and dandy. They should be able to get tipsy most of the day. So best of luck to him.
And it's the defence that I've seen all the Liverpool fans online saying, "Oh, he's talking about it's a tough place to go." It hasn't been a tough place to go.
No.
If you're going to have an away game on Boxing Day that you and your team might not be firing on all cylinders. Based on form this season, Burnley's exactly where you'd want to go. Maybe Sheffield United, and then us, So, come on. He was taking a little pop at Burnley.
Yeah. I draw the line when he was whinging about Ben Mee's tackle on Gomez the other year, when it was which he admitted was a perfectly good tackle, but because the end result is Gomez sliding and breaking his leg on an advertising hoarding, it was, it was out of order. But things like that, when Sean Dyche pulled him up for Daniel Sturridge doing one of the most ridiculous dives I've ever seen, and then he's not a diver, Daniel Sturridge. He's like, well, there's video evidence there, mate. It was a ludicrous dive. It was almost breakdancing in midair. It's just he's had his moments, Andy, with the Burnley support, but we'll so hopefully dish up a bit of revenge on Boxing Day.
Yeah, nice frosty reception for Klopp then. Talking of receptions, obviously we've got the return of Sean Dyche this weekend. Everton are the visitors to Turf Moor on Saturday evening, another evening kick-off against a Merseyside club. Simon, it feels, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? I always think it's more weird for the fans of the manager returning to the club than it will be for Sean. I think, Sean's somebody who will be able to just put the blinkers on, get the game done, probably want to come and show Burnley fans what they're missing. But what kind of atmosphere do you see for this game on Saturday? Because I can't quite put my finger on what it's going to be like at the Turf at the weekend.
I mean, often in these cases, it's actually quite underwhelming. Often it's a sort of polite ripple of applause, no booing. Maybe one or two idiots do boo, but most people politely applaud. It's not going to be... I don't think the whole Turf rises to its feet and starts singing Sean Dyche's Claret and Blue Army either, So it's... I think he'll get a warm reception. I hope he does. He should do. He deserves to. He's Chris explained it on the last pod, really, summed up pretty well what he achieved for the club. I mean, you can just pick out one or two highlights, can't you? And just the idea that we ever got anywhere near the Europa League, for those of us who supported the club, never mind in the 4th Division days, but even in the Cottrell days, even in the Owen Coyle days in the Premier League, the idea that we would go all the way to get into European football. And, I'm still not quite happy that we didn't go further in that Europa League either, and we didn't get into the proper group stage itself. But just being in the Europa League and finishing that position in the Premier League with the budget he had and the squad he had was absolutely remarkable. And I think, there was towards the end, but there was never any Dyche out stuff, was there really? People did get fed up of it, and it did become very sort of routine and set in its ways. And I think we'll never hear it from him for years and years, but I'm sure when he looks back, he'll say that, whatever had gone on between him and Mike Garlick, and it had got stale by the end. And it needed to change. But that shouldn't reflect in any way on what he did for an amazing decade of turning players as well. Turning players like Scott Arfield, who I remember when we signed him on a free transfer after he'd been released by Huddersfield Town, and Burnley fans moaning that, free transfers from Huddersfield, that's not going to get us into Premier League, is it? And, a player he turned into an international footballer, a top Premier League performer really regularly, and then a good little career in Scotland. So fantastic achievements what he did at Burnley, and I'm sure it will be strange seeing him walk out of the tunnel and head to the other dugout. It will be very weird, and I'm sure it will be a little bit weird for him. But you're right, he'll have his game face on and his game on. I sort of hope that it's quite a cold day and he just comes out in that white shirt though, like he did against Spurs in the snow. That'd be quite a nice touch.
Well, so that's the thing. He'll be dressed exactly the same, other than he'll have an Everton tie on.
Yeah.
He'll have the coat that John McGinn took the rip out of, and he'll have a black suit on, and he won't look any different. So it'll look like he's marching out to go to the home dugout, won't it? So.
Yeah,
but I think Chris Bowden should be given his place back in the front row at the press conference, though, just for Dyche's return. I think.
Yeah, with that big scarf you used to wear, Chris. You used to love that big scarf of yours, didn't he? That was a firm favourite.
Like the old Lenny Kravitz one. Remember that? But he's. I just remember. I'm trying to think. He arrived in, was it like October of the 2012, and Burnley played Watford in the December, and it was the day we were doing the hospital visit at Royal Blackburn. So we're getting a bit of preview material and just sort of saying, like, it would be a bit weird for you, will it, going, playing Watford after, like 6 months ago he was the manager, and no, just no sentiment, no nothing, and he just completely like shut that down, and it was solid to that line for a decade. He does his no medals on display at home, no trophies. I believe if you were to go in his front room, you wouldn't know it was a Premier League football manager's house. Yeah, he's managed to compartmentalize all that. There's no emotion involved. It is business, and invariably he gets business done. I think he's going to be. Well, I'm talking to the twin brother of a lad who might play on Saturday in place of Jared Branthwaite, Michael Keane. I was with the Preston squad. They were visiting Royal Preston today, but it sounds like it'd be Michael Keane and Tarkowski at centre half. Then obviously you got Dwight McNeil as well, and it's the whole thing. All makes for a bit of a strange experience, doesn't it, for Burnley supporters?
Yeah.
Bound to be a penalty challenge on J-Rod there somewhere, isn't there?
Well, you're kind of worried about the other end, weren't you? It was kind of like, in the cup game, what was it? The cross from McNeil, the header or the goal from Tarkowski, and the commentator shouting a goal made in Burnley against Burnley. But Woody, I mean, we'll come on to kind of the game itself, but It's fair to say that despite the kind of issues Everton have gone through with the points deduction, it's been water off a duck's back for Dyche, hasn't it? I think without that deduction, they'd be up in 9th or 10th. He's had a fantastic week. Somebody pointed out Everton had got more points in a single week than Burnley had all season. He's done a fabulous job, hasn't he?
Oh, it's flying. They are flying. There's nothing quite like a points deduction to like really set the cat amongst the pigeons. There's additional talk today about some more points, but I think they'll still wind up staying up if they lost another 9. I think they will wind up top half quite easily this year. But I think with regards to Dyche, we all know he was obviously shunted out without any kind of fanfare whatsoever. So it will be quite nice to see him go back on the turf, and at least people will be able to, whether they want to stand up, clap, cheer, bounce up and down, shout at him, whatever it may be. Some form of goodbye would be quite nice, and the Burnley fans deserve that, and I think Dyche deserves that. And quite nice, but you wouldn't want it to like overspill into any kind of weirdness with with Vincent, etc., and the current side, which I don't foresee it happening. So fingers crossed, we'll turn him over.
Yeah, I mean, there is always that kind of, I know when we've been on good runs, you're always just waiting for that good run to end, aren't you? And I know Vincent in his press conference today was very complimentary, as you'd expect. I know Craig Bellamy's been very complimentary. But Simon, it's one of those games Branthwaite's out for Everton. We've lost Charlie Taylor to 5 bookings. So there's going to be a bit of a switch around for us, isn't there? Obviously, it's the impossible question that we like to ask. What's Vincent going to do? How do you see that kind of back line going? Because we've got that conundrum that we had last week. Do you bring Ekdal back in for O'Shea? Who's going to play left back? It's got that feeling of square pegs in round holes a little bit, doesn't it, going into this game?
Well, it has to be, because famously we don't have another left back. So there's the nearest we have to a left back is probably Delcroix.
Yeah.
So he might come into the picture, and the other option would be Connor Roberts playing on his wrong side at left back, which I'm sure he could do. I'd probably tempted to go with that option, to be honest. I think he's a bit unlucky to have lost his place, Connor Roberts, but Vitinho's done very well at right back, so he hasn't been able to get back in. That would be the most obvious option, but Delcroix does give a little bit more physicality, almost like having a third centre half there. You could possibly play with that thing of when Vitinho's bombing forward, they shuffle across and they're a back 3. So those are the 2 real options. But as you say, Vincent is capable of throwing a curveball, and we see Zaroury there. But I don't think he'd switch around I think that decision he made last week, I can't remember who was it who said that, the thinking must have been, to have one sort of stopperish centre half in O'Shea and one footballing centre half in Bayer. I would suspect he's probably going to stick with that because they defended very well at Brighton. So I wouldn't expect to see that unless Ekdal can do a job at left back. I mean,
Wild, absolutely wild prediction, but you never know.
I'm not predicting. I'm not predicting, but I don't know.
You're just throwing it out there, aren't you? Yeah,
definitely. And Chris, I mean, touching on that Brighton performance, I mean, superb display from James Trafford. We'd said that. I seem to remember Simon after the Wolves game saying it'd be nice if he could pull off 1 or 2 miracle saves. Well, he got his wish, didn't he, last week against Brighton? I know we talked about that being the kind of result we needed and performance we needed. It felt almost Dyche-like, didn't it, in terms of we'd finally found a way of holding out. It was all about purpose rather than substance and style and all of this carry on.
Yeah, it's just having that required resilience, isn't it? It's as much concentration as anything else. If you're holding on to a lead or holding on to a point at the death, we talk about learning your way in the Premier League for lads who haven't been played at this level before, and it's the 100-minute games now, and if you switch off for a second, you get done. Charlie Taylor's, just got done at the back post, and they've nabbed an equaliser. But as you say, Trafford's, I'm not going to go overboard again about the saves. I think he did what was required of him. Give or take a couple of saves which were excellent stops. But without James Trafford, Burnley lost that game at the weekend, and it'd be lovely for him to sort of wake up and see all these Premier League Team of the Weeks with his name in it, and people talking about him starting to fulfil his promise after a tough start. And we spoke about him going up against Verbruggen last weekend, and he'll be looking at the lad in the other goal on Saturday night in Pickford and thinking, well, I'm the under-21s custodian and you're the seniors, and I'm coming for you. I want to be part of this group. It's not beyond the realms that he throws himself into this situation and goes to the Euros in the summer. He'd have to maintain his performance at Brighton, obviously, but I don't think those 3 goalkeeping slots are set in stone, especially when, it looks like Pope will be missing for most of the season now. But, it's certainly, Ramsdale can't get a game, and, Henderson's, well, just not existence at the moment, is he? It's Sam Johnson's
Things move quickly on this podcast, don't they?
it's crazy. But
a few weeks ago, we had should Vincent Kompany be sacked, right? and then we've had 2 debates about whether James Trafford should be dropped by Muric, and now he's going into England squad.
Well, I say I'm not saying he will be there. I'm saying if it's in his hands. If he turns in, displays like he did last week on a regular basis, when it's Pickford +2 for the Euros, it's up to him to go and grab it, isn't it? We know he's got the potential. We've seen what he's capable of at the junior Euros over the summer. What people say about him, what they've said about him at Bolton. What Lee Carsley said about him, Cole Palmer, people like that who know him really well. It's, he's got to go and grasp it.
Yeah, and Southgate does like promoting players who've been part of the under-21 setup. I think more than any England manager of our lifetimes, he loves some of those players who've only had a few caps, who've come through, places like Chelsea and Palace and so on, where they've been part of the under-21s, and they do get promoted a little bit ahead of when you think they might do, because they have been part of that system. So it's not. I'm not saying it's completely daft what you're saying, Chris. I would just. It's just amusing how quickly these topics move along from like dropping to getting in England.
Oh, it is. I'd agree.
It's such a fickle sport, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so fickle, aren't we?
I mean, performance or two to
yeah. Just looking at the kind of the opposite end of the pitch, Woody. I think Vincent said today that Obafemi's short term, not quite. Dyche is back on the grass, but him and Ramsey are going to be missing. Ramsey, of course, came on and then was taken off with a slight injury. But it looks like, Jay is the only option for a traditional striker berth. Perhaps a little bit quieter against Brighton, but he has been, Jay had a decent run of games, didn't he? He got 2 in 2 and then, started to look like he'd readapted to the pace of the Premier League a little.
Yeah, no, he's had a good little run out, and I've liked the way he's dropped off between him and Amdouni, and some, taking turns to kind of drop a little bit deeper, and it all looks a little bit more solid in transition as we're moving forwards, etc. And you never know, he may start off as we finished against Brighton, and Redmond's up front, 3 centre halves, 2 right backs, nobody at left back, and away we go. Who knows or dares to dream?
Absolutely. And we should really kind of, pick up on a couple of bits you've mentioned there. Redmond, we've been crying out to see a bit more of Redmond. Simon, this feels like that kind of game where we know what a Dyche side looks like, where you probably do need that little bit of extra experience, don't you? If that's, Johan Berg Goodmanson, or that's Redmond, or it just feels like maybe the game where you save a Wilson Odebear for the second half, or you perhaps, be a bit more conservative to start with, because you're perhaps going to get some of them moments where a Redmond with his experience might be able to unlock something that somebody who's fresh to the Premier League won't be able to.
I've liked the look of him when he's come on, to be honest, Redmond. I think he's the pass he played to Connor Roberts that was almost a goal, or almost a chance, was excellent. He's done a few times where he's come on and his touch looks really good, doesn't it? His first touch, he brings it under well, and he moves. He's got a good vision for a pass. I'm not sure I'd start him, but I would expect to see him, kind of game that when we've got a 1-goal lead and we're looking to defend it, he can come on in a sort of more advanced midfield role in place of, J-Rod or Amdouni, and give us a little bit more cover in midfield areas. So, that'll be interesting. The big thing for me with Everton is, like, and this is really to Sean Dyche's credit, the way he's taken Doucouré and turned him from being, a good, strong, mobile holding midfielder into a player who's playing. He's almost like an 8/10, where he's playing so much further forward. And he's looking like, the new Yaya Toure under Dyche is Doucouré. I think he's a fantastic player. And somebody who, you're looking at it and thinking, who's going to compete with him in our midfield? Who's going to be the player competing for balls with him? Is it going to be, Sander Berge? Is it going to be Josh Brown? That's going to be a really tough. I think that would be the area that I'd be looking at if I was Vincent, and thinking, if I have to adjust anything for this game, it'd be to try and nullify him somehow. And I'm not sure how he goes about doing that.
And Chris, he is that kind of midfielder we've been crying out for, isn't he? That kind of strong, rangy, almost like a bigger version of a Sander Berge, who's, perhaps can get from one end of the pitch to the other, like Yaya Toure could, eating up that ground, pushing forward, playing that number 8. That was the one piece that we were missing, really. Well, I say one piece, one of a few pieces we were missing in the summer. But Simon's right. I mean, he's a different kind of midfielder under Dyche than, he was almost like the forgotten man, weren't he, at times for Everton, that kind of player who you didn't see much of. But he's 6 goals in 16 games, I think, in the Premier League this season. He's a threat alongside everybody else, Dwight and Calvert-Lewin. We know what he's about up top. They have got danger, haven't they, in that midfield? And do you see that as the key battleground as well?
Well, they possess a threat. Obviously, they do. They've got quality in those areas. I like Harrison. He's a typical Dyche player. Works hard, bit of quality. Same on the other side. Dwight works hard, has quality. Garner, exactly the same. I believe Idrissa Gueye's out, so that probably means Onana coming in. Who's that? Just like a younger version, technically very good, bit of grit about him as well. But you look at their back 4, and bar Mikalenko, who's again another man transformed under Dyche. They've taken hold of him and they've beefed him up. The lad obviously had quality. He's Ukrainian international left back. They're getting goals out of him. But they seem to have bulked him up as well, and defensively he looks a lot better. But I look at the other 3. I mean, what kills Tarky? Pace. What kills Keno? Pace. What kills Ashley Young or Seamus Coleman, whoever plays right back? Pace. You've just got to. That's where we hurt them. Tarky and Jail have done battle many a time in training, and I'm sure that almost sort of nullifies it, each other out. But we need to get your older Berts in that area, maybe a Trezor or someone like that. But just stretch them, hurt them in behind, and because you imagine they're not going to come like that Sean's teams with Burnley and go away from home and bank in. Everton will come and try and take the fight to Burnley as much as anything else. But I think Berge can get to grips with Doucouré, but does that then limit his influence with the ball and building attacks from that base as well? But it's a fascinating battle.
Yeah, I mean, Chris said fascinating there, Woody. I mean, I was just thinking about Decore versus Berger and whether that nullifies that. But then does that open up that chance for Amdouni, like he did against Sheffield United, dropping into almost the centre circle area and pushing, getting that ball out wide? Obviously, we've not got Taylor for them crosses, but you can almost see those Koleosho-esque jinxing runs from Odegaard, tying a Tarkowski or a Keane in knots like he did with Sofal, whoever it was at fullback for West Ham, can't you?
Exactly. I think it's a very good point, because to be fair, Everton are one of our kind of bogey sides in so much of the fact that they're big, they're aggressive, they're physical, and they play direct with pace. And under Vincent, we've always seemed to have struggled a little bit with that type of side. And I think this Everton incarnation under Dyche is very much a part of that. So I can see that they'll try and bully their way through the game, but with a little bit of trickery and fleet of footness and pace, we could cause them one or two problems ourselves. So
I think that's the good point from Greasy there on Amdouni. This for me feels like a massive game for him. This is a game that's made for a player who can break between the lines like that with some pace, exactly for the reasons you've just been outlining there about their lack of pace at the back. Big chance for him. He's been close to having a fantastic game or two, Amdouni. He's shown what he can do. The finishing product hasn't been there, but not been far off. There's been some good efforts that have whistled past posts or just flown over the bar. I'm quite excited about Amdouni, and he's going to have a game sooner or later where one or two of those things really come off for him. And it just feels like this Everton game, for the reasons you've outlined, their lack of pace in particular, is one where, if Jay's up there and he can be keeping one of the centre halves, Keane or Tarkowski, busy. You've got Odegaard jinking in from the wing and stretching a centre half out that way, and then Amdouni's coming through that gap in the middle. That's the way we can win the game. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're not going to make any predictions because somebody pointed out that the two games that we haven't made predictions for so far on the podcast were the Luton and Sheffield United games. So I think we should kind of keep our powder dry in the way that Mike Garlick always used to keep the powder dry at transfer windows in January in the summer. Because if it's as dry as that, then we could come out on top. But we're not gonna jinx it with the old best time to play Everton and all that shite we usually do. Before we wrap up, we should touch on this. It's been announced today that Rebecca Welch will become the first female referee of a top flight game for our trip to Fulham a week on Saturday. Obviously, we've had female assistant referees for quite a while who, I think do a better job than some of their male counterparts, despite the kind of stick that they have to put up with from some quarters. But I mean, this is a real kind of step in the right direction in terms of inclusivity. And I know our kind of former midfield hero, Joey Barton, has been going down the kind of, tinfoil hat, weird Matt Letizia, Ricky Lambert, Andrew Tate's bullshit misogynistic route on women commentators over the last couple of weeks. But this is a step in the right direction, isn't it? I mean, we want to increase diversity in the game. We want to attract more people to the game. But Chris, I know you're a former manager of the Accrington women's team. You're somebody who's followed women's football for a hell of a long time with Rachel Brown Finnis, of course, who we had on the podcast. This is an exciting thing for the Premier League, isn't it? It
is, and I'm surprised it's not come earlier. Like I say, I mean, how long has Sean Massey been part of the the furniture in the Premier League? And like I say, she's managed elite games. She's been to the World Cup, the Women's World Cup in Australia. And it's Howard Webb. I was listening to an interview with him on the way home, and he's saying, she's ready to handle it. You've got to trust. He knows what it's like to handle, Premier League football. So you'd imagine he's got a good idea of whether she's ready or not. But you can only do it. You can only get experience by doing it. And you have to look at the crop of referees that we've got at the moment, and it's all you hear from week to week is, VAR, and we're debating refereeing decisions, etc. I don't think she could. You're looking at the quality she's got to contend with, and she's what's she got to lose, sort of thing. But no, it is a step in the right direction. You talk about when I was at with Accrington Stanley Ladies, and you get sort of the old timer referees that would turn up on a Sunday, but the one referee that stuck with me most, he was a young lad, and he must have been 10 or 11. His socks pulled up, notebook in his sock, pencil, immaculately made out. And do you know what? We all looked and we thought, oh my word, what we're going to have today. And he was sensational. Knew the rules inside out, was just a delight to deal with, to talk to. There was no sort of, schoolmaster shtick from him or anything like that. And you never know, you might be surprised. I'm saying I haven't seen her officiate a game, so I can't sort of debate her abilities as such. But if our web says she's good enough, she must be.
And Simon, you don't like to name and shame those who are crap, but I mean Simon Hooper, Jarrod Gillett, etc., which we won't be naming, of course. But I mean, as Chris has just said there, I mean, refereeing is it's a hard job, isn't it? I mean, who the hell wants to be a referee? I mean, where is the 10 or 11-year-old who reffed Chris? I mean, what possesses anyone to take up a career as a match official?
It's like Tony Philliskirk, wasn't he? Tony Philliskirk went down the route, didn't he? And obviously, he's back coaching. But there's always been a cry for more ex-pros, and we don't seem to get any who want to do it.
Yeah, and it is a tough job, and there is obviously going to be the clamour from certain quarters that it's equality gone mad, it's wokeism, and all of this shite that people seem to throw about these days. But we need a better standard of officials, don't we? And perhaps we need officials coming in who are not worrying about the hair, who are not worrying about having their name on the boots, Mark Clattenburg, all of these kind of weird cliches that we've got with these celebrity refs. It could be the way we need to go, couldn't it? By bringing through people, regardless of gender, into the ranks to kind of shake things up a bit.
Well, I think she's good enough or she ain't, really. I mean, I don't think there's anything magical about her being a woman or about another referee being the first black ref for 15 years that's going to make them better refs. I mean, either she's good enough or she ain't. It's as simple as that, really. And if she's good enough, and they've decided she's good enough, if she's got the capacity for the distance you have to cover and everything, then great. I think the problems with refereeing are less to do with representation and I just think sometimes I was sat in a meeting last week at MLS where they were talking about some of the rule changes they're going to be trying out in the second tier of football in America, just like experimental things, like to get rid of time wasting and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things they're very keen on is something that IFAB have talked about, which is like only allowing the captain, the rugby rule, only allowing the captain to approach the referee. And I do wonder with a woman referee there, I mean, it wouldn't be a good look to have a sort of Haaland situation, would it? Screaming in the face of a woman referee. So that one magical thing that might happen from having a woman there is there might be a little bit more respect shown. But we're constantly talking about how bad the refs are and stuff. Why is there only one referee on the field? This is something an American said to me last week after this meeting I was sat in. What is it about football that makes you think that you only actually need one ref there? You could have two referees on, one covering one half of the field and the other covering the other. It costs the game next to nothing for the cost of it. They have that multiple ref system in American sports. There's no need for a ref in NFL to be running all the way down pitch, following it all the way around, and then all the way down for other. Same in NBA with so much close action that happens in each end. There's always one ref down the other end. I don't know why the game is so stuck. We're obsessed over technology, which doesn't work particularly well, and yet we won't do something very simple. There was briefly that experiment, wasn't it, in the Champions League of having a ref by the goal line before they brought in goal line technology, which was a rare piece of innovation. Why do we only have two linesmen? The pitch is divided into four quarters for the assistant referees.
I've always wondered about the assistant referees. Why would you make somebody run the whole length of the pitch when you could you could easily, I mean, if you're not going to have two referees, surely it would then be easier to have two pairs of eyes, especially now they're in, now they're in constant contact through the headsets. Surely you wouldn't then have to rely on VAR, which is clearly not up to the game at the minute. Woody, I mean, Simon talked in the pod last week in terms of what Alan Pace could learn from the American game in terms of atmosphere. Is it, does IFAB need to learn from American sports and other sports by having multiple officials, do you think?
It seems to be at the minute, it would benefit football from having more referees, assistant referees, more eyes on the game to make sure that everything's being covered off effectively and not just some silly VAR decisions afterwards. But if you look at what happened in Turkey this past week, where that ref got an absolute brain, it's not a great time to be coming into, to be a referee, especially after they had all the leagues postponed. I don't know whether that's still the case, but that's a slippery slope, and you can see that creeping in across all leagues if we're not careful. So I think things like Simon was mentioning with regards to the rugby rule, etc., anything that shows more respect to the officials and allows for better officiating, should be tried, should be experimented with, and we should move forwards to the best of our ability because the game's getting quicker. It's not getting slower, and we are seeing officiating getting better.
Yeah.
Only thing it kills it. Yeah, well, it kills the amateur clubs because they can't afford referees. Never mind two, and they always. We all know we've all run a line at some stage as well, haven't we? So they can't get a linesman.
But we've got rid. VAR got rid of that principle that the game should be handled the same at all levels. Because we now have VAR. There's no VAR in Sunday League. That'd be great, wouldn't it? VAR in Sunday League. That would be fantastic.
Can you imagine?
Some of these
hungover bloke sat in the clubhouse, just kind of like half asleep until he gets the prod to look on his phone at a replay, a badly filmed replay of an offside decision. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
It just is some fresh dog shit. Yeah.
But it is a thankless task. There's a bloke who runs quiz nights at Nelson Poultry Club. Stephen Mason, who was a Football League. Do you know him, Chris?
I don't know. I'm just.
Stephen Mason was a Football League when they were called linesmen, and he did a lot of. He did a lot of games that weren't televised. There weren't as much television in late 70s, early 80s. But he did a Merseyside derby that were on Match at Day, and came with a controversial offside decision. And the camera zoomed right on him, and he was doing that old linesman thing of the keeping his line out straight and his face dead set, not a flinch of emotion. There's like Ian Rush and John Aldridge or whatever are like yelling at him for this disallowed goal, and I think he was at Goodison, and it was on Match at Day, so everyone in Nelson were like, "Look at you see Mason on Match at Day." And to this day, people bring it up. I mean, the guy hasn't been officiating football for like 20, 30 years or whatever. He's, he officiates, like I said, pop quizzes at Nelson Poultry Club. But for the rest of his life, he'll be remembered for one offside decision in a Merseyside derby. So thankless task, definitely.
I've got visions of him standing waiting for the X43 and the bus driver just hurling abuse at him with his arm outstretched as though it was an offside decision as the X43 goes past him on his way to Manchester. But we should just point out the black referee that Simon mentioned is Sam Allison, who's becoming the first black official to take charge of a Premier League game when he takes charge of Sheffield United versus Luton Town on Boxing Day. So definite advancements in terms of diversity and hopefully in terms of the standard of officiating in the Premier League with those appointments as well. I think we'll leave it there. We'll be back on Monday with a debrief of the Everton game. I think it's fair to say we're all quite looking forward to seeing this kind of mix of styles, and I think it's going to be a really good game. Don't forget you can follow us on social media at B Hall Podcast on X. Formerly Twitter and Facebook. And don't forget to like, rate, share, subscribe, tell all your friends, keep us in that top 100 of the iTunes charts, which we are doing, the Apple Podcast charts. We've been in the top 100 football podcasts in the UK now for the last few weeks. So your support very much gratefully received. So thank you very much for that. And until Monday, enjoy the rest of your week, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the football, and up the Clarets.
Jimmy McElroy to Watson.